um, Slow Food Community of Negros Island, DOT, led by Secretary Bernardo Malupuyat, and RD Tin Mancinares. Also from the DA, led by RD Remelin Recoter. CPSU, Slow Food Panay. Let me welcome each and every one of you to listen to our resource speaker, who is not only a talented writer and artist, but now a permaculture designer, Miss Anne Coruña, whom I have been following her permaculture journey. I am also as excited as you all are to hear her. I would like to thank especially the Slow Food Youth of Negros Island, led by Nelros Eden Cornelio, Shane Gabriel, Claudio, JL, Joy D, Karesh, and also from AFEDI, Miss Rina Gamboa, who happens to be the president of Slow Food Community of Negros Island as well, Christian, and JR Santa Ana. We look forward to organizing events like this and be more productive during the pandemic. Thank you very much and good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you very much, Sir Chin. So before we proceed, I would just like to remind everyone of our house rules for the webinar. Please mute your audio to reduce background noise. And if you have any questions, kindly use the chat box or you may raise it later after the presentation of our speaker. So now, without any further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today. She is a writer, a visual artist, and a permaculture designer and practitioner. Before pursuing her art, she was working in the nonprofit sector. Miss Joanne illustrated and wrote the book Halin sa Kusina, Food Stories from the People of Negros Occidental. In collaboration with the Provincial Tourism Office of Negros Occidental, the Department of Tourism Region 6, and with the help of Slow Food Negros. Miss Joanne and her family are currently growing a food forest in Bacolod City. So ladies and gentlemen, let us give it up to our speaker for today. A virtual round of applause to Miss Anne Coruña.
Thank you very much, Nell. And thank you, Chin, for that kind introduction. My volume is okay? Yes? Okay, so I will start sharing my presentation. Okay, so once again, I'm Anne V. Coruña, and I'm a writer, visual artist, and permaculture designer and practitioner based here in Bacolod. So I'll be talking to you about permaculture and the ecology of change making. So just so all of us are on the same page, these are the things that I'll be talking about. So introduction, a little bit about what I do, what permaculture is, why it's important to practice permaculture, and permaculture ethics and principles, and then the initiative that I started, which is ecology of change making. And then we'll have some time for some questions from you. So as Chin and Nell have mentioned, I am a writer, and this is actually a screenshot of my website. So it's Amidst the Green. You can visit it on amidstthegreen.org, and I share field notes from our food forest here in Bacolod. So these are permaculture notes on what I do every time I'm at the food forest. And this is the book that Nell mentioned, Halin sa Kusina. I illustrated the watercolor paintings here. And it's very interesting because I started this project with the tourism office here in Negros Occidental and DOT and Slow Food Negros as well, before I even entered the world of permaculture. But looking back, a lot of the people we interviewed for this project actually practice permaculture by making use of the abundance around them and, building a community around that. So Now I'm also a permaculture designer and practitioner, and that leads us to what permaculture is. So permaculture really is essentially a design framework. If you have a piece of land and you want to make it more abundant, more productive, then permaculture is a tool that you can use to do that. So this framework originated from Australia. The co-originators of permaculture are Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. And basically, they wanted to teach people how to grow regenerative food systems. I know there are terms in what I'm saying that may be unfamiliar to some, and I will be touching upon those later. So what you see now is actually an illustration of the permaculture design for our site here in Bacolod. So the brown box is where our house will go. So there's no house yet. So the food forest was developed or was grown first before the house. And so this is the food forest. It's mostly fruit and nut trees and perennial plants. Perennial plants are plants that you just plant once, and then you can harvest a lot of times from it, depending on the plant, how long it will live. So this is one part of the lot. This was taken in 2019. So as you can see, it's very bare with just a few trees. These are trees that just grew by themselves. They're called pioneer trees. You usually find them around barren pieces of land here in the country. So that's binungan, there's an alim tree, and then wild banana plants. And then 2 years later, this is how it looks like. So it's through permaculture that I was able to work with nature to make that barren piece of land into something very green and very productive and abundant. So permaculture, you might be wondering if you can only practice it if you have a piece of land. And the answer is no, you can practice it even if you don't have land. If you have a balcony or just a corner in your house or outside your house, you can practice permaculture. We actually have a pot. I call it a food forest in a pot here in our balcony. And we use rice water when we cook rice. So we use the water from washing the rice to water that pot. And that is already practicing permaculture because you're not wasting the water. And it's making the cycle more closed. So it's regenerative. You're using what you have to make something grow. And then whatever you grow, you will use. And the cycle continues. So I think it's also important to note that permaculture, while this framework was designed or was created by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, they're ecologists and they learned so much from the indigenous peoples of Australia and from around the world. So permaculture really is nothing new, the philosophy, because our indigenous peoples practice this close relationship with nature. So this is something, I think permaculture is a good way to reconnect to our roots and also pay respects to our indigenous peoples, since they are the ones who are really taking care of the biodiversity of our world. So why should we practice permaculture? So first is resilience. I mean, in our world today, there are so many challenges, as we all know. There's the climate crisis, there's the pandemic, and I think each one of us is called to be more resilient and more adaptable to these changes, especially our young people, actually. So through permaculture, we can learn this. So this is an example of a very resilient plant. It's Talinum. Some of you or many of you might be familiar with it. It's Talinum or Philippine spinach. Some people consider it a weed because they grow everywhere here in our country and you don't really need to take care of it. But it's actually edible. And people who know that it's edible eat it just like they eat spinach, like the regular spinach you would buy in the supermarket or in the market. So you can saute it, you can put it in omelets, you can even make a dip with it. And permaculture is really about this. It's about growing plants that are resilient. That's why there's a focus on perennial plants, because perennial plants, because they stay longer in the ground, they develop this relationship with the soil and the microbes in it. And we don't have to prepare a new bed every time we want to grow food. It's just maintaining that relationship and just adding and adding to the diversity. So another example of resilience through a permaculture practice is fermenting or fermentation. So this is kimchi, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. And in most traditions in the world, ancient traditions in the world, involve preserving the abundance that we get from the earth through pickling or fermentation. So that's also permaculture. And then this is an example of a perennial plant. This is a perennial basil, and you can use it. You can use the leaves to make tea, and it's very refreshing. And there are studies that it decreases stress. And then another example of resilience in rainwater harvesting. So this is a pond Water and I made in our food forest, and these are buckets that we have all over the food forest. Since we don't have a house yet, we cannot harvest as much rainwater as we want. We're using these white buckets that we got from a bakery for free, and we just collect rainwater with it. Another reason to practice permaculture is regeneration. So I'm sure many of us are familiar with the calls to live sustainable lives. But really, it's more than being sustainable now, what is needed for us to do or practice, because we cannot just sustain the current state of the world, but we actually need to start regenerating, encouraging more life and more abundance. And a great way to do this is through composting. So this is our banana circle. It's basically banana plants that we planted around a pit that is about 5 feet deep and then 3 to 4 feet wide. And we just put our kitchen scraps there. So we collect our kitchen scraps from whatever we're cooking in the kitchen, and then we put them there and cover it with soil so it won't attract rodents or anything else. And then it will feed the soil and it will feed the banana plants around it. And you can plant other things like sweet potato or other plants that will go well with the bananas. So this is one of the banana plants in that circle, and this is actually our very first harvest from the food forest of bananas. So this is blue Java banana, and it's just amazing to think that I did not do anything to take care of this banana plant except transplant it there and then use our kitchen scraps for compost in the pit. So our kitchen scraps fed this banana plant, and now this banana plant is feeding us. So that's a regenerative cycle. Regeneration can also mean re-education of our new generations. So this is my son planting some seeds and my daughter helping out with making a pathway in our food forest. And it's always a joy for me to have them in the food forest and learn about permaculture. Just as much as we expect our young kids to learn how to read and write, I think with the state of the world now, growing our own food and having that close relationship with nature, knowing how nature works and learning from her should also be as necessary and essential as reading and writing. So the next reason to practice permaculture is community. So again, because of these challenging times, there's a lot of talk about maybe the apocalypse, or there are a lot of preppers, right? And self-sufficiency is great, but beyond that, I think it's really community sufficiency that will help us get through all of this and come out the other side with a much better world. So our family, that's also community, and we also must reconnect with not just nature, but with our neighbors, with the people in our city, right? Just building community is very important, and permaculture really stresses this as well. So this is a picture of seeds, and I included this here because this is a great way to also build community. I love collecting seeds from our food forest and then or permaculturists in the country. It's very easy to do. So that in that sense, even though we cannot see each other face to face or in person, then we can still feel that sense of community among us. Another way that we try to build community is through the sharing of information. And I do this through this podcast that I started with my husband, Dr. Anne Coruña, and two of our different, very dearest friends, Albert Balbitin Jr. and Rosel Junio. So we created Tanum Tuesdays, and we talk to people and about their plans all around the Philippines. So now we're in the meat of permaculture. So permaculture ethics, this is really the core of permaculture. And once you see them, they will seem very basic. So people care, earth care, and fair share. So as I've said, you can probably guess what these mean. They're pretty self-explanatory. And I will just delve into fair share for now. So fair share is basically the value of knowing that the abundance that we get, whether it's from our gardens or food forests, or from our careers, or from whatever we are doing, we should be able to share that with the people around us and not just hoard the abundance for ourselves. So this is a key part of living a permaculture life. So around the ethics, we have the 12 permaculture principles. So you can see that the earth care, people care, and fair share are in the center. So they're the core. And then the principles are the practical applications of these ethics. So these are guidelines that we can use to not just grow abundant gardens, but also actually in all aspects of our lives. Honestly speaking, when I have a decision I need to make, or when I have a dilemma in any aspect of my life, I do come back to these principles, and it helps me process whatever it is I'm doing or facing. So we cannot delve into all 12 now, but I will give examples. And if you want to learn on your own more about the 12 principles, you can go to permacultureprinciples.com. So that's where I got this illustration. So as an example, this principle number 1 is observe and interact. So this is a short clip from our food forest. This clip is from a year ago, but it still applies now. It's really just me observing and interacting with what we have in the food forest. So this is me interacting with the wild vine, since I know it can strangle the baby basil plant that I showed earlier. And then I move on. So every morning, this is the first thing that I do. And it's my favorite thing to do because it's very relaxing. And you just really observe. Look at what's in front of you and just observe how nature works and learn from it. I actually recommend that you observe first before interacting, because sometimes we would have that urge to fix things right away, especially if we see something that we think is bad for our plants. But I think we should be able to trust nature. So that's the power of observation, because we don't actively do anything. We just respect nature and watch how she works and learn from her. So principle number 3 is obtain a yield. So this is Roselle or Rosella, and we actually didn't plant this year, but this was from last year as well. So in anything that we do, we would want some results, right? Like positive outcomes. Otherwise, why would we do that thing? So this is a permaculture principle as well, to be clear on our goals and then making sure that we actually do get to obtain a yield eventually, so we can be encouraged and motivated to do more and to continue the practice. So this is passion fruit, a passion fruit flower, and this is our first harvest, and we made passion fruit cake. So passion fruit is also perennial, so we already had a harvest and now we're waiting for another one. And I didn't do anything to the plant. It just grew on its own. It produced its flowers on its own. And of course, beyond and the vegetables that we get from our garden, there are different kinds of yields, like mental, emotional, and social and physical. So social is the community part, mental and emotional. This picture reminds me of the peace and the calm that I always get when I am in our food forest. It's the place where I am most present, and that's really a great thing to have, and we're very thankful for that. So principle number 10 is all about biodiversity. So as you've seen in the first few pictures, when we first moved into the lot, there were only about maybe 5 to 7 trees. And now there's well over 60. And of course, with the diversity of plants, we also have a diversity of insects, birds, reptiles, amphibians, all sorts of animals, and they're all welcome. I don't use any sprays, whether it's organic or not, when I see aphids, because of course you'll see aphids, right? When I see aphids, it just makes me want to plant more flowers. And that's what I did the first time I saw aphids in our food forest. And eventually the paper wasps came and they eat the aphids. So it's just really, permaculture is all about providing the conditions for nature to balance herself. And this just really happens with patience and mindfulness and presence and trust and respect for nature. So just as a review, so permaculture is a design framework with the guiding ethics and principles. It's deeply rooted in indigenous culture and wisdom. It's really inspired me to actually start a project that I haven't started yet, but I would really love to work with our indigenous people on something. So permaculture is not just about growing food, it's really a way of life. So permaculture leads to resilience, regeneration, re-education, and reconnection or community. And then these are the ethics of permaculture, and the 12 permaculture principles are around those core ethics, and those are the practical applications. Now, I'd love to talk to you about Ecology of Changemaking, which is an umbrella initiative that I started early this year. So as I've mentioned, I do all of these different things like writing, painting, and now permaculture. And with my background in the nonprofit sector, one morning, I was in the food forest and I was just tending to the plants, and it hit me that permaculture is actually systems thinking in action. So systems thinking is really what change makers do when they try to solve the problems in our society. So this is what inspired Ecology of Changemaking. I was a staff member of Ashoka Philippines before I pursued my art, and that's where my change making bent comes from. Ashoka is a global organization that looks for these change makers. So people who are trying to solve the big problems of the world through systemic solutions. So not band-aid solutions, but solutions that really go into the root of the problem. So it just hit me one day in the food forest that all of the things that I do and that I'm interested in actually can help each other. So that's what I'm doing now. So everything that I do fall under this initiative of Ecology of Changemaking. So I share my permaculture knowledge through venues like this one, through my website, my Instagram. And I also offer permaculture design guidance for nonprofit organizations for free. And then I co-designed this program. It's a youth program, actually, and that's why I'm mentioning it here, because I know that Slow Food Youth members are here. It's called Gubataan. We haven't launched it yet, but this is a program I co-designed with Ashoka Philippines, and it combines permaculture and change making. And then I'm planning to offer consultations as well for individuals. And again, it's really just focusing on community sufficiency and not just self-sufficiency. So I'd like to end with this quote from Masanobu Fukuoka. He's actually a Japanese natural farmer who inspired the co-originators of permaculture. So he's also the author of One Straw Revolution. If you're interested in permaculture and growing your own food that in harmony with nature, I strongly recommend reading this book. So the quote is, "The ultimate goal of farming is not the growing of crops, but the cultivation and perfection of human beings." Of course, we cannot be perfect. Nobody can be perfect, but that's the goal of permaculture. It's really not just about gardening or growing a food forest, but it's really growing a community of people who care about one another. So thank you very much. I'm Joanne, and I hope you learned something, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Miss Joanne. That was a new takeaway, most especially for us, the youth. I keep mentioning to you and Sir Chin that permaculture is new to me. So there were some points you shared earlier, like the rejuvenation, regeneration, re-education, resiliency, and of course, reconnection with our roots, since permaculture is a way of life. And if we work on sustainability, we also have to learn about how to regenerate through reconnecting to nature. So with that, the floor is now open for our questions from our participants. If you have any questions, I'm pretty sure Miss Joanne would be glad to answer that for you. And for our FB Live viewers, you may now comment your questions. And for those who are in our Zoom meeting, you can type your questions in the chat box or use the raise hand bot icon so you will be recognized. Anyone? Oh, so we have here from the chat box question. The question is by Sir Edgar Ibanez, a member of the Association of Tour Guides of Negros. What is your motivation when you started permaculture?
So thank you, Mr. Ibanez, for your question. So when I started permaculture, we just got back, actually, our family from living in Japan, since my husband had to train there. So while living there, we walked around a lot, and I saw all these really wonderful gardens maintained by mostly senior citizens in the village where we were living. And that was really inspiring to see. And before permaculture, I was just really into food forests because, there was a piece of land that we were gifted with and we wanted to make meaningful use out of it. And the food forest idea led me to permaculture, and I just researched more and more, and I just found that the values of permaculture resonated with what I've been trying to live out really my entire life.
And you started this permaculture in your area here in Bacolod, Miss Joanna. It's an urban permaculture area.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right, Nell. Yeah.
Yes. So he has another question. How can we encourage the youth to start permaculture?
So I think events like this one that Slow Food organized really help. I think especially with our youth, online most of the time, just sharing the knowledge. And once they get to see what they can actually learn and get out of practicing permaculture, I think they'll they'll be drawn to it. And I think from what I've seen, especially when I was co-designing the program with Ashoka Philippines, the youth today are so much more aware than us older ones, right? Because they're the ones who can feel the effects of the climate crisis, and I think they're really just motivated to do something about it. And of course, permaculture is not the only way to contribute to a better world, but I think it's a good way to do so.
Yes, and I agree, Miss Joanne, that the youth nowadays are exploring new things. And I think the pandemic also has helped us reconnect with nature. Yeah. And we have here another question from LGU Bago City Tourism Office, Sir Francis Lagradilla. His question is, what is the difference between permaculture and organic farming?
So permaculture, you can look at it as an umbrella framework, and organic farming can be under it. And then you can practice organic farming with other practices that also adhere to the permaculture principles that I shared earlier. So it's not you have to just practice one thing. There's also syntropic farming, and all of these can fall under permaculture. I think I didn't mention earlier, permaculture is really a lot about the relationships between or among the elements of in your permaculture site, like among the plants, the trees, the animals. And if you have structures, then it's really designing them so they talk to each other and interact with each other in a meaningful and productive way.
Okay, thank you, Miss Joanne. We have more questions. There is one from Miss Belen as well. Hello, Miss Joanne. Just wondering of the minimum lot size for food forest.
Actually, like I mentioned earlier, thank you for the question, Miss Belen. We have a food forest in a pot. So this is like, you can get a big pot about 18 inches deep and wide. You can have perhaps a malunggay tree in the middle, and then some sisu spinach to cover the ground, and then perhaps a pepper. Right now we have an avocado tree, although I would have changed that, but for sentimental reasons, we're keeping the avocado tree, and then we have sisu spinach and the pepper plant growing all together. And that's already a food forest because you have 3 layers at least, right? So there's really no minimum lot size and definitely no maximum lot size. You might be interested in the Miyazaki method. I believe I can give it to you, Nell. to share with everyone. And it's really working with a small piece of land and planting as many native trees as you can. I saw Dr. Annabelle's question about native trees. Yes. So should I just answer Dr. Annabelle's question? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so hi, Dr. Annabelle. So thank you for your question. Definitely, we can incorporate native trees and bamboo. Our food forest actually has about maybe 60% native trees. So as you've mentioned, it's not really just for food for humans. Like I've transplanted many trees that are not that don't bear fruit for us, but actually provide habitat for our wildlife. So that's also one of the goals for our food forest here.
Thank you. So definitely we can start permaculture with our backyard gardens. Yeah.
Definitely, even
Yeah.
just a balcony or a corner in your house.
Yes. So, Ms. Joanne, I'll proceed with the next question from Sir Vic Jason Tagupa of Safe Young Farmers. Pleasant day, Ms. Joanne. For people and farms that practice permaculture, can they undergo certification process or can their products be labeled as permacultured?
There are certification courses. I believe we already have a few here in the Philippines. There's one in Iloilo, I think, that you can attend and be certified. So I'm certified. I did mine completely online and with virtual interactions. Of course, the practical applications I did on my own and then shared it with my teacher and with the group. So yes, there's a certification process. But I think it's also good to keep in mind that, permaculture, just by the philosophy that it's spreading, you know, the fees or the taking of a course shouldn't be a barrier to anyone who wants to practice it. There are so many free resources online that we can all use. I still use them. There are a lot of people who share this knowledge.
Yes. Sir Vic, I hope that answered your question. We still have more questions because when we sent our registration, we already incorporate in there if they have questions for you. So here's another one. From our fellow Slow Food Youth Network member, JL Alalon, who's also from DOT. His question is green thumb myth or reality?
Myth. It's really, I thought also na I couldn't grow anything. The first plants that I really tried to take care of were cacti because, they're supposed to not die on you, right? But the more you learn about how plants grow, what plants need, you will realize that it's really the soil. It's not your thumb or any other digit, but it's the soil that you want to take care of because it's the soil and the nutrients there, the living organisms there that will take care of your plants and make them thrive.
So we are not, I just posted a week ago about that green thumb also when I saw one of my office mates growing this flower plants, and then everybody else cannot grow it among us. So that also answered my question. Thank you, Miss Joanne. And here in Negros, we
Thank
are
you.
very rich in soil, agricultural soil. Yeah. So
Yes, we're
everybody can
actually very
definitely start.
spoiled
Yeah.
because we have good soil, our climate is good, like being in a tropical country, being able to grow all these plants. I think we should take advantage of that and grow things, grow plants.
Yeah, and we can start now. Yeah, so next question is from a student council of St. John's Institute, Bacolod, uh, can wait, can permaculture design principles be used, or can you give any tips on staying green during the pandemic, or any organizations and activities that we can help and participate in online?
So thank you, Nell. So the question is if there are any activities to learn about staying green, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the Gubataan program, which is permaculture and changemaking, which will launch soon, sometime in October. And there are so many now. There are so many campaigns and organizations. I'll be sure to share with Nell. Maybe Nell can post it somewhere as well. So with links and everything, so it's more useful.
Thank you, Ms. Joanne. And we will also share that to everybody who registered in our activity today. So please do make sure that you have registered in the link that we have provided in the post. We still have time, Ms. Joanne. More questions? Yeah. There's another one. How does permaculture impact our daily choices of food individually and as a community? And how to do foodscaping in permaculture? That is a question from Ms. Victoria G. Padilla of Agtalon Incorporated.
Thank you, Miss Victoria. So good practice is to buy local. So if you're not growing your own food yet, then a way to practice permaculture is by buying from our local farmers, going to our farmers, the weekend market, and supporting our local farmers. I think it's good to keep in mind that the closer the source of your food is, the better it is for the environment, because transportation and the packaging of things that we might have to buy elsewhere, then it's really better to buy closer to home. The second question, I think, has been answered by the permaculture design that I shared earlier. And really, it's the relationships between the plants. So permaculture also encourages the planting of a diverse, it's called a polyculture, so different kinds of plants together, instead of just all lettuce here, or all of the same plant here, like how we want things organized. It's really better to mix things up, because this will the different plants can help each other, right? And also this can distract the insects that might also want to feed on the plants we're growing. So whether it's through the scent of the plants, the companion plants, or the shape of the leaf. So polycultures is a good thing to look up if you want to design your foodscape.
Yeah, there's also a natural ecosystem between plants and nature and the animals, the insects. Yeah. And like what you mentioned earlier, Miss Joanne, on like buy local, that is one of the advocacy also of Slow Food, is to support our communities, support local products, especially during this time, because we have to be self-sufficient within our community, within our area. Yeah. So next question is from Miss Aurora Esther Perez. How do we involve a group of science-minded students to be interested in permaculture? Do you have any idea? Do you have an idea how to inspire them? Miss Aurora is from Slow Food Sugbo, Miss Joanne.
Thank you, Miss Aurora. I think before the pandemic, having an edible garden in school would have been a really great idea, right? If there's a way for the students to still come together safely, perhaps have shifts or have like a structure or an organized schedule so that there's only a few people at a time, then perhaps starting a permaculture garden will help build their interest in permaculture. Uh, there's nothing like seeing plants grow, especially if these are plants that you yourself sowed or transplanted. And it's very inspiring, and I think it's really good also for our mental and emotional health, especially these times.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be down to our last two questions now. Yeah. We have here a question again from Sir Edgar of the Association of Tour Guides. Can talinum is a plant, be planted by seeds for a start? If not, how?
So talinum can be easily propagated through cuttings. It does have seeds. Actually, one time I harvested talinum cutting and just wanted to root it, and it had some flowers and some, I guess you can call them fruits, the pods, and the pods just burst, scattering seeds. So that's how it really spreads, and that's probably why a lot of people see it as a weed. But I haven't seen anyone sell talinum seeds, but through cuttings, it's very easy. You just get perhaps a 3-inch long stem, and then you actually just really stick it in the ground and it will grow.
I think Sir Edgar will already start planting it after this session.
Thank you, Sir Edgar.
I just would like to read one of the comments here in our chat box. Hi, Miss Joanne. Your presentation validates our beliefs and commitment to conserving biodiversity, as we are also launching the seed and plant libraries in Pangasinan with members of the Organic Household Model Gardens who do foodscaping within the boundaries of their backyards, no matter how small the area is. So thank you. That is also from Miss Vicky Padilla of Agtalon Incorporated.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Vicky. That's very inspiring, and it's really so wonderful to hear that we have seed and plant libraries, in different places in the country.
Yes, so before we end, Miss Joanne, please share to us your social media accounts or anything where we can follow you and learn more about your advocacy. You mentioned earlier also that you have a podcast, so that after this we can learn more about what you do, and they can ask questions that they haven't asked yet.
So I'm most active on Instagram. That's at amidst the green. I can type it in the chat box later. But for those who are not on Instagram, I have a website, and amidst the green, that's amidstthegreen.org. And then you can always email me. I'll also put my email. I'll put it now in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me to share what I've learned and what we practice here in Bacolod.
Thank you, Miss Joanne. And for more questions, and if you have any recommendations for our next topic for the next webinar, you can message us through our Facebook page. And you can reach Miss Joanne also through her social media accounts. Please see our comment box, and we will also share her references and the book she mentioned earlier, and her accounts through the email you provided in the registration links we sent. And so that officially ends our open forum. Once again, thank you so much, Miss Joanne. And to show you our gratitude, it is with honor to present our certificate of appreciation. And the certificate reads, Slow Food Community Negros Island presents this certificate of appreciation to Ms. Anne Coruña for sharing her valuable time and expertise as a speaker during the webinar entitled Green Perspective, Permaculture and Changemaking, given this 18th day of September in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Philippines. Signed, Mr. Ramon Oy Jr., member of the Slow Food Community of Negros Island. Again, we are grateful for having you as our guest for today, Ms. Joanne. And of course,
Thank you so much.
yes, thank you again. And we hope to have more activities with you soon.
Yes,
And
yes.
to our participants here coming from different cities all over the Philippines, from different organizations, government agencies, and our youth participants, we'd like to request for you to turn on your cameras, if possible, for us to have a group photo with our speaker, Miss Joanne. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. Kumusta?
We have here from different agencies. So we'll just wait for the others to open their cameras. There, can you request Sir JR to take the photos?
Hello.
Is everyone ready?
Vicky.
Yeah.
Vicky from
I'm gonna wait for the
Pangasinan.
others.
Si Bing from Cebu. Sila Vic from Mindanao.
All right. So
Vic
for
Fort. Kumusta? So our participants are from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao today. So thank you for attending.
Thank you also, Sir Chin, for making this activity possible. So is everybody ready now? Show us your warm smiles. These are like 2 slides, so hold your smiles in 3, 2, 1. Another one in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone,
Thank
for
you,
showing your
everyone.
beautiful smiles. And Ms.
Joanne,
Joanne, thank you also. If you wish to know more about slow food, why don't you like our official Facebook page at Slow Food Negros and on Instagram at Slow Food Negros to be updated with our future events and involve yourself. Join us and advocate for good, clean, and fair food. We had so much fun with all of you. Again, this is Nelrose from the Slow Food Youth Network Philippines, Negros Island, and I'd also would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank my fellow SPIN members. Of course, I have here Shane, Claudio, Karesh, Chef Gab is also here. Who else is here? I can't mention everyone, but thank you for the support and for helping us co-organize this activity. So once again, thank you so much. And to wrap up this activity, we'll show you a video of our recently conducted Earth Market here in Negros Occidental. So keep safe, everyone, and thank you so much.
Food has brought Philippines Filipino people altogether.
The food that you eat matters. This belief has sustained me for many years that you cannot do anything if you are not healthy. If wala ka sang energy na i-provide si mo sang pagkaon to go about the rest of the day and do what you need to do.
Diri sa Slow Food Negros community, we are lucky because ang Ilonggo, we like our food. Diba? Ginatikal, tagid na ang mga turista kakadto di para sa pagkaon ta. So, let's keep that and let's try to maintain it because we are who we are. We are Ilonggos, we are Negrenses.
Campaign of slow food is to recall and retrieve those practices nga natural wherein may mga recipe ang lokal nga pwede naton makonek as an attraction on the campaign sa biodiversity or food diversity in Negros Occidental.
Good afternoon, ako si Paulo Guiñabo, Business Manager sa Family Farms Incorporated. Ang amon produkto, whole grain rice. It comes in different colors. Mayara kami black rice, red rice, brown rice. Bali ang ini nga produkto grown organically sa mga smallholder farmers all over Negros.
I'm Joanne Josa from Silay Agriculture Office. So ang different mga vegetables from different barangays man sa Silay City. Yeah, from Kapitan Ramon, Barangay Matag, Balaod. Kami ang hipon sa mga products sa mga farmers.
The Department of Tourism would like to continue its partnership with Slow Food Negros community. It will focus more on the role of food to the community, to the environment, and the culture that we have.
I think our food is definitely more tasty and more flavorful. Plus, it is linked to our history, kung sino kita. So that's why we would like to invite you all to always appreciate the farmers. That's why we have what we call an earth market, so that you can talk to the farmers themselves.
Philippines Inc. is a producer sa Mascobado Sugar. Pinapromote namon ang mga product na halin sa small farmers sa Negros. I am Josie Joy Jimenez, owner of Mash Makulay Mushroom Farm. We produce fresh mushroom and we have mushroom products like mushroom chicharon, mushroom garlic paste or alabagoong. And then we have also fresh mushrooms.
The Filipino farmer is actually rich because they provide everyone else in every industry. The regular businessman could not do what they do if it is not for the food that they eat, the rice on the table that farmers provide for them.
We are lucky here in Negros kay ang farmer accessible pa. So let's appreciate them and support them.
It's quite rare to find a place like Negros na ang iba na city, ga-innovate sila food. Ginapa-modern nila, ginapa-advanced. But Negros, we go back to its roots. We innovate by going back to the basics, to what's important.
Si Jane Sweltos, nagahimo kami sa lain nga product nga paagi sa tinigid nga bugas. Isa ang product namon sa tinigid cake.
There are a lot of things that bring families together.
For some, it is sports or shared hobby, but ours is food.
Kami ya ang farmer nga halin sa pagtanom, pag-maintain, pag-harvest, pag-process, hasta sa paggaling from farm to cup. Kung nakita ninyo may coffee na cup kami nga bali available. Agud di pakita nga gusto namon i-capture bala ang value adding nga chain.
We really hope that this partnership with Slow Food will continue on for more generations to come because it upholds the social responsibility of promoting organic farming and its benefits not only to the health of its consumers but for the health of the environment.
I think the bottom line of this campaign is to promote safe and healthy food that connects to the organic campaign and of course connects to agri-ecotourism and connects also community-based ecotourism. So, ang matabusin na, there will be circular economy.
Our need to eat healthy food to sustain our health, we wanted to project that we as a community need our farmers in order for us to grow.
There is a sixth love language. So more than physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifting, and quality time, there is food. Because with food, we remember the first meal that our mom cooked for us, the signature dish of a loved one who might have passed away, or our favorite saluhan with our friends. So the way emotions and feelings are transferred through food, that's what makes it a love language.
But as for organic farming, we promote a more sustainable way of farming. We suddenly become a part of something bigger than ourselves, far greater than just profit. We become ambassadors of sustainability and we promote social responsibility in terms of food. Slow Food has given us the avenue to promote quality food, food that is prepared with love and patience. This platform can aid us in spreading the word about organic food and sustainable farming.
Thank you. Goodbye.